So welcome to episode 18 of Level Up, everybody. 60 minutes of Q&A, where your questions really do drive the show. If you're watching on LinkedIn or on YouTube, click on a little link in the chat and that'll take you across to Slido, which is where you get to vote up the questions that you most want answered. And of course, that's where you can add your own questions as well. And you know that voting is so important. It really does help us prioritize our time, and it's easy to do. IT service management is our theme for today, so you can ask any questions that you would like on this theme. In the second half, we're going to be focusing in on Six Sigma and how it can help organizations improve quality and really drive improvement. So let's jump straight in and meet our panel. I'm delighted to be joined by three colleagues who are all returning as panelists today. The first of whom is Johann Botha, who's the CEO of getITright and specializes in building digital capability with all of his clients. So welcome back, Johann. Great to see you.
Thank you, Nick. Good to be back. Yeah, I think you've summed it up. We focus on the digital age and management.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Next, we also welcome back Stephan Brendel, who leads APMG's Europe and Latin American regions, and whose career has really been in the world of service management from the very earliest days of ITIL. I don't wish to date you too much, Stephan, but I think you've pretty much seen that whole evolution, if you like, of service management from the early days. Welcome.
Thanks, Nick. Good morning to you, and good evening to others on our show. In fact, I actually started with Six Sigma when I was at GE, a General Electric company, and at that time, Six Sigma was kind of a religion within GE. And just a couple of years later, I went into the world of service management, and today I'm also on the board of IT in Germany. That's where I usually live. Today I'm in the Netherlands. And that combination has always been challenging for all of us, but I think that will be the topic for today.
Okay, thank you very much. So you were one of Jack Welch's, kind of troops who were implementing Six Sigma, because he really grasped onto that, didn't he? It was kind of a core strategy at GE. So brilliant. Well, I'd not remembered that. So thank you very much. That's really helpful. Also back for his second episode today is Sunil Mehta. He's the managing director of Quint India, and he's also a director of the ITSMF, but this time the Indian chapter. So great to see you again, Sunil. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Nick, for inviting me again. Although my career started in 1990, but my exposure to service management started in almost 1999 when I was with HP trying to implement ITIL. So I'm happy to share my knowledge on the various aspects of service management today. Thank you for inviting and welcome all.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And it's great that we can do that, because we've had experience both on the, implementation side and also then on the education and training and consulting and so on. So it's really good to be able to have that, experience base to be able to draw upon. So thank you. The first of our new panelists today is Shakil Murtaza, who is the Senior Risk and Data Security Officer at ACICO in Kuwait. Shakil, I'm not sure if I've actually pronounced your organization's name properly there, but he's a certified ethical hacker. Okay, thank you. He's a certified ethical hacker and an ISO 27001 lead auditor. So great to see you, Shakil. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Actually, I came totally from a technical background. Move to IT service management. So I know each steps what IT technical is facing and what is the exactly customer needs. So I'm happy to be in this.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. And completing our panel for today is a special welcome actually now to Dick Theisens, who is the founder of the Lean Six Sigma Academy in the Netherlands. Dick is also an author. He's written many books, including the acclaimed Six Sigma series called Climbing the Mountain. And he's going to be leading our focus topic today. So great to have you on the show, Dick.
Yes, thank you, Nick, for being here today. First time as a panel here. My background in Six Sigma goes back about 2000 when I started working for Texas Instruments, working in the automotive industry, very often in Mexico at the shop floor, where I work with methods like Lean and Six Sigma for solving problems. And I got so enthusiastic about the results that you can achieve with applying these methods that I started a company on this topic to train others in this topic.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And it just shows you how, we get excited about different things in our career and it sparks our imaginations, and then it's no longer work. It just becomes something that kind of draws us closer and closer and further in and so on. And that's very much how Level Up works. It's all about us building community and sharing our ideas and our experiences. So if you're watching us online and you feel that you could join us here on the panel and answer some of the questions, then please just do mention it in the chat, and one of our colleagues will be in touch with you to get you onboarded. Okay, so now let's jump straight into our questions for the day. And we're going to hear from Suchitra, who's joining us from Bangalore as our question master. So Suchitra, may we have the first question, please?
Hi, everyone. We have a question from Jeffrey in Amsterdam, Netherlands. Why is it important to implement a service management framework? Isn't using software enough?
Okay, Johann, and then Sunil. Johann, go first, please.
I think it was Paul Wilkinson that said, a fool with a tool is still a fool. At the end of the day, what is important is you need to be able to understand what is important to do in your organization, define processes, and then you can automate. And the service management frameworks out there is just a good reference. It's best practice for a purpose, because it has worked before and it will most probably work for you.
Thank you. Sunil, and then Shakil.
Yeah, I think the whole concept of best practice was that we put in the knowledge from multiple organizations, and that's been working, as you just said, and kind of share it with people. So the framework gives you the process and the procedure, while the tool automates the process and procedure. And they are two separate things. You can't assume installing a tool will give you the process framework. So the process comes first, and then you use a tool to automate. And they typically go hand in hand. And that's my view.
Shakil, go ahead.
IT service management process, it helps to meet the business needs is actually, instead of having only a software tools.
Okay, thank you. I mean, for me, I would say that, the framework is so important. Ultimately, service management, we need to think about who's consuming the service. Okay. Who is consuming the service, and what criticality does it have, and what value does it have for people, and so on? How are they interacting with it? How much do they depend on it? When you're working out of hours and something that you rely on, to do that last minute piece of work suddenly is not available to you, that's a big problem for you, just at that moment. And all users have these moments of truth, right, across the organization. And we need to make sure that we think about them all of the time. And that's where I think the framework can make a huge difference. Stephan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just would like to echo what Sunil just said, is that this 9 out of 10 have found that this was the right approach, and then it was written down. I think one of the issues we're facing today in service management is that it has become too big, too large, too complex, and that it does not reflect that iron principle anymore. Because if you look at the studies, if you look at what is actually really has been adopted, and from all these many 20 plus processes, you find 5 or 6 that people are referring. And that hasn't changed since I know most of you have joined at least 10, 15 years this area. That hasn't changed since then.
It's certainly true. We've kind of put on a bit of weight in the middle age. As service management has matured, it's got thicker and thicker, okay, and less lean in its approach. So that's certainly true. You know, there are more bells and whistles now than perhaps there is, you know, movement forwards in service management. So it's a good point, you know, to return to those principles. You know, what is this actually all about? Who are we servicing and how does that work? Very good. Well, thank you very much, panel. Great answers to our first question. Dick, you wanted to add something.
Yes, I mean, I have a lot of experience in applying lean in companies. So it's about making processes more predictable. And let's say automation, implementing IT can be sometimes contradiction to improving the process. Because sometimes implementing systems and IT can be a goal in itself, an objective in itself. But you should start with defining your processes and then start to automate them.
Yeah, it makes complete sense to me, and I think it's getting a lot of nodding from across the panel as well. So on that note, let's move on to our next question, please, Suchitra.
We have a question from Hans in the Netherlands. At what point is a service management framework implementation finished? It seems that you can go on implementing without achieving any results.
Okay, I'm Stephan and then Sunil.
I think the short answer is never. It is never really finished. Yeah. And that is for several reasons, I think. One is, as we said, it's a framework. So you're setting up a set of processes. And service management, particular ITIL, has never said how you do things with a few exceptions. It always says that's what you have to do, right? And then it comes to, so how do I implement? One option is software vendor says, oh, I have a complete process ready for you. You just adopt that. Or you go into other steps and then, like Dick said, you automate. The problem with results is if you have a process, there are two trends that I'm seeing, and that's what I've seen through all my career, is when you look at Six Sigma, we come to that, I know, and to ITIL, is in the chemical industry, as an example, nobody would touch a process. They would look for the input, make sure that the input has the right quality, because then they know what the output. In IT, you're constantly changing the process. So you keep the bad quality of the input, you change the process, you squeeze the process, you stretch it, whatever, to make a better output. That's why some people even say there is a agile process, which is a contradictory term to me. It's about changing processes all the time. So when you see two things, then in the manufacturing, you see hardly processes changing, while in IT, constantly changing. So it is never really finished.
Okay, all right, thank you. We'll debate that a little bit. Sunil, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I agree with Stephan. Improvement is a continuous process, and it will go on till the enterprise feels that they've reached perfection. And in case any organization feels they've reached perfection, it's the starting of their downfall, because you never reach the perfect process or the perfect implementation. And we've been doing a lot of work in this field, and research shows that 80% of the enterprises state themselves that they're between 2 and 3 levels. From a 0 to 5 maturity, they're between 2 and 3, 80%. 10% feel they've reached 4 out of 5, and the rest are either below 2 or they're around that figure. And none of the companies claim that they are 5, which is good news, which means they are always trying to improve. Now, the other part of the question is without achieving any results. Now, that is a little confusing, because if you're really working your path up, you're working on the process, you're automating the process, following the best practices, doing a baseline of where you started, typically it should improve. Yeah, if it's not improving, there's something wrong with either the process that you create, right, or the tool that you're using. And I think we heard this term already, a fool with the tool is still a fool. So if your processes itself are wrong, the output will really not come out. So I would say it's a continuous process, like change, and we should kind of look at, with the constant change which is happening in the IT environment or now in the non-IT environment, service management has to continuously focus on improvement, and obviously on the customer value. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Johann, and then Dick.
Very quickly. So don't implement best practice for the sake of implementing best practice. Find out what the problem is that you're trying to solve, and then solve the problem. Then you won't have an issue with not achieving results. I think there's far too many people that runs around and say, we have to do ITIL, we have to do COVID, we have to. No, you don't have to. Do what makes sense.
Thank you, Dick.
Yes. If you talk about results, it seems like you're finished at some point, and you're never finished, like Stephan said. So it's about continuous improvement, and service management should help you to get more grip on your processes and to get better all the time. So it's about continuous improvement. So it's an objective. It's never a result.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that one thing that does evolve, certainly in the organisations that I've worked with and for, is that sense of what good looks like. And that changes over time. You know, what you might be happy with initially in the very early days, you know, you're underwhelmed by soon afterwards, you know, and things evolve all of the time. And so what good truly looks like actually does change over a period of time. So it is a constant process, and it is a quest, as you say, rather than a destination. So excellent. Thank you very much, panel. Suchitra, let's move on, please. We'll take the next question.
We have a question from a live viewer. Are there certain KPIs used within service management? And how do you track service management success?
Okay, so some KPIs that are used in service management, and how would we track those KPIs success? Well, there's certainly a great deal of software now that you can use to gather this kind of data. Sunil, from your consulting work, what would you say are the key KPIs?
Okay, now that would depend really on what improvement and what's the business issue you're trying to solve. So service management, as Stephan was saying, it's too big and too large to have a KPI at that level, right? And it's also difficult to measure results. So you need to break it up into what are the issues that you're trying to solve, what are the process you're trying to implement, and you will have process-based KPIs, right? There are technology-based KPIs, and there are service-based KPIs, what service you're trying to improve. So I would say you need to drill down a little bit further in terms of what technology you're using, what services you're trying to improve, and what are the typical process. And then combination of all these three will give you your specific service management metrics or KPIs to improve. Thanks.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Johann.
Now, what we quite often do if we get involved in projects where a tool is implemented, is we ask the tool vendor to delete all of the reports. And the reason for that is very simple, because people get reams and reams of reports and eventually they don't look at anything. So understand what's important for you to understand, and to know, and define those and use those. And less is more. And for me, the most important is customer metrics.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I might come back to you in a moment. Shakil, go ahead.
Yeah, I do forward Mr. Sunil approach. You can start with the service by service and match with your SLA to have some kind of track. So as per the question, you can start with each service, put the SLA and get results.
Okay, thank you very much. One thing that I've kind of learned over time is that at the beginning, people argue about the absolutes. All right, they'll argue that this value is not right; it can't possibly be right, especially when you implement a new way of measuring something. So they say, no, it's not the case. You know, look over here, and they've got 4 or 5 legacy reports, and they're comparing it with, you know, whatever the new software is, and they're saying, no, this can't be right, etc., etc. Over time, it doesn't matter so much what the absolute value is. To run a better business, you need to watch the trends. So you need to follow the trends quantitatively and also from a qualitative perspective as to how the service delivery is being experienced by people. So I would say follow the trends is possibly more important. Johann, I love that idea about deleting all of the standard reports and focusing in on what's important. What's the expression on the face of the software vendor when you ask them to do that?
absolute disbelief. People can't imagine that you don't value all of that good stuff that they're doing. But yeah, and another thing maybe just to quickly add is be very careful not to try and measure something that you can't objectively. Proxymetrics is dangerous. It will give you the wrong answer and you'll start doing the wrong thing.
Understand. Thank you very much. Dick, go ahead.
Yes, of course, you should start by asking your clients what the KPIs should be. And from there, start implementing whatever you want to implement. And secondly, basically KPIs can be distinguished in three categories. It's about quality, it's about time, it's about costs or money. And again, ask the customer first.
Okay, thank you very much. Great advice and an excellent question. So thank you very much. Those folks who are watching online, just jump in and type your questions in and we'll get them over into Slido for you. So thank you very much. Suchitra, let's move on, please. Next question.
We have a question from Sandy in New South Wales, Australia. What is the best way to transition to cloud-based computing and still be able to use our service management processes and tools?
So use of the cloud now is pretty endemic, around the world. So I think if you're at the stage of considering this, you're moving from possibly a non-cloud legacy system into a hybrid type model. Sunil, what are your first thoughts? And then we'll come to Stephan.
Look, as for me, whether it is on-prem, whether it's on cloud, you still have to first decide what your processes would be, whether it's handled by you or it's handled by the cloud vendor. So that's important to figure out what those procedures and processes, what should be my process, right? And then you decide which one you want to outsource, which one you want to go out. And if you know your procedures well, even if it's outsourced, you can govern and manage them very well. So I would say whether it is on the cloud, whether it's on-prem, the importance of the service management processes and procedures stay the same. The only thing probably that might change is, for example, security management will become much more elaborate because now it's moving from your place to a cloud vendor and maybe it's a shared cloud system. So you'll probably strengthen your security more, or change management would be a little more stringent. You will put in some governance in place. But the procedures and the processes that you intend the vendor to follow would remain as important and pretty much the same.
Okay, thank you, Stephan.
So cloud-based computing is, just have to distinguish between what was the trend a couple of years, maybe a decade ago, to outsource complete organizations, including their processes and everything. And cloud-based is another trend, where it's actually more a functional-based SLA. So, let's take an example that we all know. It's about Office 365. It's a cloud-based thing, right? So you outsource that in a way that it's hosted, that it's backed up and everything. But there's still variations in there, like Sunil said, where you have to decide what is it that the cloud provider does. For example, upgrades, updates. And that can become very complex when you keep that in-house. So you get, before you do all the updates on, if it's operating system or Office 365, you might stop that and make your own checks and all that. In the end, it's the big issue with service management is that it's no longer a cycle where you can manage everything. You have to get much more on SLAs. You have to actually now really have to have KPIs where you say, this is what I want to be measured. This is what they have to provide. So some of those service management processes are now with the cloud provider. And you are the customer there. It's a stretch. It's a stretch for most organizations that were used to run IT on their own.
Okay, very good. Let's pick up the pace a little bit. Johann, final remarks on this one?
There's a brilliant new book by David Cannon and Richard de Kock on cloud service management. I don't know if it's out yet, but it's awesome. So, Sandy, buy the book, read it, good advice.
Okay, thanks, Johann. If you put a link to that in the chat or let us know the title of it, then we'll make sure on the recording on YouTube that we share it with the audience as well. So thanks for that. Let's press on. Suchitra and panel, let's keep it super tight now, please, and get through a couple more before we go to the halfway mark.
We have a question from Ron in Surrey in the UK. Can the panel explain what robotic process automation is in relation to artificial intelligence and service management?
Okay, Sunil, super quick.
I would define robotics to be about physical devices, right? And RPA is about digital devices. And coupled with AI and ML, as we talk about, it can do a lot of automation, specifically with ITSM as well. So, for example, data analytics, right? We do a lot of data analytics in ITSM itself, whether it is problem management, whether it is trending, looking at past incidents. So the whole thing can be done coupled with RPA. We can figure that out. Similarly, in DevOps, we are talking about CI/CD, the whole automation of testing, integration, deployment. RPAs, the digital devices help us in a much more effective way to kind of automate our existing processes. So I would say that. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the reason why you'd be doing it is that you want to scale something. You know, it's a blend of the human then and the machine, and the machine can think faster than the human in certain circumstances, but it can't always make, you know, all of the decisions. So it's a very strong and powerful tool, you know, to be able to scale service delivery and service management. Okay, next question, Suchitra.
We have a question from Hamid in Brussels in Belgium. What role does business relationship management have in IT service management?
Okay, BRM in IT service management panel. I would say that, you know, initially, my immediate thought on it is that the two are, you know, kind of related skills, you know, for the modern service manager, really. Stephan, go ahead.
Well, BRM is actually what is more to the age we're in, where IT is business. I mean, you still hear this, that people saying, ITIL and service management is all about the business has to understand IT has to understand business. That's crap. It is there. So the business relationship manager is sitting on that interface. He has to understand all worlds. It's a fantastic role. It's the role of the future, in particular when we look at things being outsourced to the cloud. That's exactly where it has to be. It's the next step.
Absolutely. Managing that extended ecosystem is right at the heart of good BRM work. Suchitra, last question, please, before we go to the focus topic.
We have a question from Peter in London in the UK. How important are modern tools like Slack and Jira in delivering excellent service management?
Sunil?
Yeah, I'm not going to go specific on Slack and Jira because Jira is more a software development. Slack is more a communication tool. But any tool which automates, makes it more agile, makes it more cost effective, we call it lean now, is a welcome tool as long as it integrates with your existing technology. Yeah, I mean, there are so many tools which are available. At last count, I thought it's more than 1,000 tools which you can integrate. But pick up what your business needs, pick up what your technology integration needs are, and these definitely help you in the overall automation and service management. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much indeed, panel. Some great questions in our first 30 minutes. Now we're going to change gear now, if we may, across to our focus topic. Now, for those of you who are following over in Slido, just click on the little room. It's called the focus topic room, okay? And there you can enter your questions to put to Dick. Six Sigma and all of its belts, as we've heard a little earlier from the panelists, I guess was born out of the work of Bill Smith and Mikhail Harry all of those years ago in their period in Motorola, and then was adopted, as Stephan was mentioning, by General Electric in the 1990s, which drove huge visibility of the approach worldwide. And now, given that we've got this capability in big data and analytics and engines to help us organize that data and turn it into information, it does seem that it's a perfect opportunity to embrace it. So Let's hand over now to Dick, who's going to kind of share his thoughts on an insight into Six Sigma over the next 10 minutes or so. Dick, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Nick, again for inviting me for giving this focus presentation about Six Sigma. So, as Nick mentioned in the introduction, I'm also the founder of the Lean Sigma Academy. And when I started a company in training about 15 years ago, Six Sigma and Lean were still separated. Were still two different improvement methodologies, and it was not combined as it is now pretty common. So when we gave training, it was not possible to get a certification on Lean and Six Sigma as a combination. So that's why we founded the Lean Sigma Academy in about 2009. So let me give me a little bit different, maybe a little bit of the difference about Lean and Six Sigma. So what you see here on the screen is the continuous improvement maturity model for processes. So if companies start working on continuous improvement and working on delivering products or services, they can follow this maturity model to see where they are. And as you can see here, on the third level of this framework, you have the focus of creating stable and efficient processes. And there you use Lean. And the focus of Lean is on reducing waste and to get more grip on your process and make the lead time shorter and get the products and the services faster to your clients. On the fourth level, there is Six Sigma. And Six Sigma has a focus on reducing variation. And it says that it's about creating capable processes. And a capable process has a definition, which I will explain later, what capability really means. But you can see here the both big methods, Lean and Six Sigma. And also, I will not explain this presentation, but I can do it another time on the basic levels as well. So I will have a little bit more focus on Six Sigma in this presentation, but I want you to understand also that is also about Lean. So let me a little bit focus more on Six Sigma then. So what is the meaning of Six Sigma? Well, that depends on how you take a look at it. First of all, if you ask a client, then the client wants you to be the best in class as a supplier or as a service provider. And it's about meeting the client's requirements and the wishes of the client. And in Six Sigma terms, this is called the voice of customer, or VOC, as abbreviation. And if you start listening to the client, he will explain to you what he wants. But basically, that's very often very fake. And the challenge within Six Sigma, that gives you certain tools for that, is to make it more tangible and to break it down to KPIs that are really meaning if you achieving those KPIs, you will be best in class supplier or service provider. So that's from a customer standard point of view. They want you to be the best. From a business point of view, it's about money. It's not about earning money, but it's about saving costs to make sure you do not have cost of poor quality. Because if you're producing, you see on the screen a cookie. If you have a factory making cookies, and I use, by the way, the example of cookies because everybody knows how a cookie looks like and how it tastes, and everybody knows cookies. So I'm not talking about cars or about service provider or not even IT management. I will do it later on, but let's start with cookies. So if you have a factory of making cookies and 1% of the cookies break in the machine, you have a lot of cost of poor quality. And Six Sigma is about solving the problems of this machine. So finding the root cause and solving the problems. And we call this within Six Sigma breakthrough projects. It's not just simple continuous improvements, as you might know it from the PDCA, the Planned Object X Circle, from the Kaizen approach. That's small improvements. No, Six Sigma is about really big breakthrough projects where the PDCA and the Kaizen approach doesn't work anymore. Then last, there's also about a statistical point of view, because Six Sigma is about 6 times a sigma. A sigma is a measure for variation. As you can see in the screen on the left, you can see that I point out a 3.4 ppm, 3.4 parts per million. That means if I produce 1 million cookies, that only 3.4 of these cookies do not meet customer specification. So it's all about Six Sigma. It's all about statistics. You can use statistical tools to come up with these kind of measures. So let's see. If I produce 2 cookies, or I have 2 machines that are making cookies, then one of the KPIs within Six Sigma is the DPMO. It stands for defects per million opportunities. So within these cookies, I have different opportunities that I cannot meet, requirements that I cannot meet. That's maybe the amount of chocolates, the dimensions, the size, the weight. So there's a lot of opportunities. Opportunity is also a possibility of a mistake that you can make within these cookies. So the question that you typically raise within a Six Sigma projects is, do my cookies meet customer specification? And then again, as I mentioned earlier, you need to understand what your client is and what he wants. And then the second question is, how can we improve our process capability? And then it comes back to the statistics. Because if you go back one slide, you see there a normal distribution, a little bit to the right. It's not in the center. It's also very small. You see that the amount of cookies that do not meet customer specification, so they are, let's say, in this example, the diameter is bigger than the upper specification limits, the USL, and the cookie is not good. So the way the amount of my process meets customer specification within these targets, the lower specification limits, the upper specification limits, you can give a number to it. And that's called the CPK. That's the capability of my process. So Six Sigma process is compared to 1.5 CPK. Forget about it, but it's about that companies that are talking about Six Sigma, they do not talk about the amount of cookies that are not meeting specification. No, they talk about the CPK of a process. There you can really distinguish the companies that have experience in Six Sigma or not have experience in Six Sigma. If they are about counting measures, they're probably not at the level 4 yet. But if they're about talking about my CPK is not good enough, how can we improve our CPK? Then you see there's a difference between companies that are ready for working on the 4th level using Six Sigma. And you see that, for instance, in the high-tech sector or in automotive. They are talking about CPK, not about the amount of failures. So Six Sigma has a lot of techniques, and you can compare these 2 machines and say, well, machine 1 is better than machine 2 because they have a better CPK. And you can also do a statistical check if there is a difference in these 2 machines or not. If there is a statistical significant difference. So that's Six Sigma offers you tools for that. So what is Six Sigma? It's a project management approach, yes, but it's not about, let's say, designing a new process of developing a new product. It's not like Prince2 or Agile, let's say, to make new processes. It's about solving problems. So Six Sigma is more like a roadmap, what you can see on the left, the DMAIC, D-M-A-I-C, define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So if you have a problem, you can start a DMAIC to solve that problem, to find the root cause and solve it. Secondly, it's a big tool set. I put a couple of tools here on the left. But basically, there are more than 100 tools, and some are statistical tools, but otherwise are also brainstorming tools, like the Pareto or the 5Y. It's simple tools, but some are very sophisticated. So combining these improvements, project management, roadmap, let's say, together with the toolset gives you a lot of strength to solve problems and really find root causes that you will not find with only normal brainstorming techniques. So if you combine these 2, you see here a poster that we use, the DMAIC, you see the 5 phases, and actually the 14 different phases that you see on the top. It's difficult to read, but it's not important. But you see there, within these DMAIC, certain tools come at a certain time. Not all the tools are visualized here, but what I would point out here for now is that on the measure phase on the bottom, you see there is a normal distribution, which is too much on the left, and it's very wide. So we have fallout, we have bad products, we have bad services, we have complaints. and then you start solving the problem, and you implement the improvements, and then you have on the improve phase on the bottom, you see a much smaller standard deviation, normal distribution. So then we solve the problem. So what about IT service management and Six Sigma? Well, basically, it's all about data. You have a lot of data available within IT, but what do you do with the data? What tells you if you see a difference? Is the difference significant or not? Statistically significant differently or not? And if you have a problem, if you face something which is point out red, what do I do now? Well, Six Sigma gives you, again, a roadmap and a set of tools to solve the problem outside maybe the IT service management dashboard, but you can maybe get the data available of that process, which is red, and then you can solve it and improve it. So start not about counting the effects, but try to make it as a qualitative measure, which is explained like this one on the graph in the right. Now you can see if your process is maybe in control or not, if your CPK is too low, and then if it is okay, it's okay. But if it's a problem, you can use Six Sigma to solve it. So I hope that explains a little bit what Six Sigma means. Now we can discuss how it can be applied into IT service management.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed, Dick. There were some good little reminders there for me of things that, over time have kind of slipped, sort of to the back of my mind a little bit. And, just kind of being able to take the time and look and, baseline what's happening currently, and then be able to chart that progress forwards as to, okay, well, look, if we're going to be able to improve this, how do we set about doing that in a logical and pragmatic, kind of way is super important. So thank you very much indeed. Really interesting insight into the world of Six Sigma. So look, what we've done is we've swapped the question bank over. So we've got the questions now surfacing from the audience around our focus topic. So Suchitra, may we have the first focus topic question, please?
We have a question from our panelist, Shakil. How does Six Sigma methodology help in IT service management processes like change management or IT help desk tickets?
Okay, who would like to go first on the panel with that? Stephan and then Johann.
Yes, I think we have particularly when you take the example of service desks. Yeah? It's what I said earlier from the chemical industry. If you have a stable process, just look at the material that gets in. So a service desk means annoyed people are calling. Usually annoyed people are calling a service desk. So that's the input, right? And to get a filter in pre-qualification, for example, so what is the problem? So that you know everything. One example we all know is when Amazon, you don't call them, they call you. Yeah, that's one approach of doing a service desk. So they know everything when you call. They know what it's all about. They know who you are. It's that kind of pre-qualification which then allows that you can follow that process. And I think Dick has impressively demonstrated how much this is about data and how much this can be implemented there. Another question will be, which I don't cover now, is if the mentality is there to actually do that. But that's another one. Oh, Johann, I think over to you.
Yeah, Johann, go ahead, please.
Okay, so my first instinct would be, why not problem management? And the reason is most probably is because the issues start in incident management and change management. So if you're looking for a bulletproof method of doing problem management, use to make. It's brilliant. You've got the data, you work through the process, and you make sure that it never happens again.
Yeah, thank you. Dick?
Yes, I mentioned Six Sigma Toolkit has a lot of techniques. It's not only about statistics. It's also about stakeholder analysis, about voice of customer, voice of business. It's about change techniques, how you deal with resistance. those are all also part of the toolset of Six Sigma.
Yeah, it's certainly true. And I think, Stephan, it kind of ties in with the point that you were making about, it's about this appetite, the culture of the organization, really, isn't it? To be able to examine itself and to be constantly striving to improve and make sure every moment of truth for every individual interacting with a service is one that has high value for them. Excellent. Very good. Suchitra, we'll take the next question, please.
Your question from Lemay Ho. ITIL is also a known methodology used in IT service management. Do organizations have to choose between ITIL or Six Sigma, or can they work as a winning combination?
Okay, how would you put these together, Sunil?
I think from my perspective, this is an interesting question. ITIL is about the process framework, and we've been talking about process, I think, for the last half an hour. And Six Sigma, as Dick was explaining, is a methodology to improve continuously, right? And you can use that in any process. You can use that in any improvement initiative. You can use that in an end-to-end, implementation. So I would say they definitely work. They are not competing with each other. They complement each other. Most of the best practices are now complementing each other rather than trying to take over the other part. And especially Six Sigma is pretty interesting and is constantly being used with ITIL or any similar methodology or process methodology that we adapt for implementing best practices. So I would definitely say it complements, it goes a long way. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Shakil.
I have only one sentence. You need to start with the ITIL, processes, procedures, and then you can improve Six Sigma technologies, methodologies to improve, to achieve, to generate value. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say the only other thing to consider, okay, is to be able to think about, and Johann, I'll come to you in a moment if I may, is to be able to think about your organization's ability to consume the way in which you're presenting the information. You may need to think about, how can people read the reports and particularly the graphs that it is that you're producing when you're going down this route, because they may need a little bit of help on that in the early days to be able to understand the graphical information that you're presenting to them. Go ahead, Johann.
Yeah, I think there's nuance in this question also. First of all, best practice is there to help you. It's like a library. You're going to pick the pieces that will help you solve problems. The moment you say, but we're an ITIL organization, you're in for a hiding. It's the wrong thing to do. Pick and choose. Yeah, do what's appropriate. But that means you need to understand what the problem is in your organization that you're trying to solve.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, panel. Next question, please, Suchitra.
A question from a live viewer. How can Six Sigma be used for logistics management and merchandising processes?
Okay, that's an interesting one, particularly in the world that we're living in just right now with all of the challenges in logistics. Dick, have you worked in transportation and this kind of thing? Are those organizations using Six Sigma?
Yes, some of our clients are in logistics. Most of these clients are first working on lean. So it's about a logistical, let's say, process, and you have a lead time. Hey, you get an order, you need to deliver something, and that should be in shorter time frame, let's say. So reducing waste. It's more about lean. Then lean is also about to make your process more predictable and to collecting data of that process. So qualitative data of the process. Is my process still meeting customer requirements? Is it on time? And then has it a lot of variation or not? If it has a lot of variation, then your predictability is low. And you can then use Six Sigma techniques to lower that variation and be more predictable and meeting clients better. And to, let's say, if you're ordering something from a post office or from a web shop and it gets delivered to you, it is much better to say, I will be there between 1 and 2, or then between 9 and 5 somewhere in the day. You need to have the whole day there. It's better to be more predictable, less variation.
Yeah, absolutely. And huge challenge just right now. A big shout out to everybody working in logistics. This is not an easy thing to be doing at the moment with the world's economy starting, stopping, starting again. Has introduced some scenarios which were way beyond those which I think anybody really truly imagined. Next question, please, Suchitra.
We have a question from Peter in London in the UK. Now we have great analytics tools. How important is it to understand the maths in Six Sigma?
Yeah.
What would you say, Dick? What would you say?
Yeah, well, first of all, many people don't like the math of Six Sigma, but they like the effect of applying Six Sigma. And so maybe it helps if I say that when I was studying mechanical engineering, statistics was the only one topic that I had to do 4 times before I passed. So, and now I'm using software like Minitab or Jump to do the statistical analysis. Of course, you still need to know what you are doing. So you need to understand some of the basics. But the formulas you don't have to do from on your screen itself. No, but it's about really knowing what you are doing. That is still important.
Good point. Well made. Thank you very much, Johann.
Now, I just wanted to say very, because your tool is not going to solve the problem. If you don't know what formula to apply in what circumstance, you're going to get the wrong question. You're going to get an answer, but it's not the answer to the question that you thought you were answering.
Yeah, it's an answer, but not necessarily the one that you were looking for. Yeah, Stephan, go ahead.
Just one example that I remember back in those times in GU was always given, like when you're talking about, let's say, availability of 99.999%, for example, they gave this like what that means in Chicago O'Hare, a plane is crashing every week compared to the absolute numbers. So one thing I took away from this is, particularly with the Six Sigma statistic, is you're much more going into working with real numbers. And I think Dick pointed that out in his presentation.
Yeah, go ahead, Dick.
One more. So you was mentioning about the books that I wrote. So that book is based on using statistical software like Minitab. But on each of these techniques that is explained, there's also explained the formula that is behind it. Not to maybe know it from your head, but to compare it and to really know what you are doing. Because as Johan mentioned, you can press the button, you get an answer always. You get always an answer, but it might not be the right answer. So it's very important to know what you're doing.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think the world is moving from a position where generally the cohort of people who are now mid to late career, who are running organizations, their command of STEM subjects is actually pretty low as a percentage of those individuals. The cohort which is coming in early to certainly early career, the adoption of STEM subjects in schools around the world is much, much higher. So you've got this situation where actually, the folks who are at the most senior level are relying on individual contributors and team members and team leaders and so on to be able to help bring the data to life. And that means telling the truth when we can see a trend in the data and it's clear and we've checked everything and we've checked it twice kind of thing, yeah? All right. And also telling the truth when actually there's something going on that we're not quite sure about and that needs a little bit more investigation. So it's super important, I think, as we build out greater and greater automation, greater and greater machine learning models, that we go back to those first principles. And as Dick has advised, and Stephan and Johann, stop and think, go back, understand the principles that are involved, and then apply them in your own situation. So great job, panel. Thank you very much indeed. So I'm going to come to you in a moment for your kind of closing remarks. It's been a really interesting discussion today around this whole area of service management and Six Sigma and quality improvement and so on. But just before I do that, I just want to invite anybody who's watching us on LinkedIn or on YouTube, do please subscribe. Okay, if you subscribe and you click the little bell and you've got value from today, then the little bell is going to remind you, okay, of when the next episode is actually on. So panel, your closing remarks. Dick, I'll come to you first and then Sunil next. Go ahead, Dick.
Yes, so the moment I really liked Six Sigma was when I realized that it gave me a tool set to solve problems from, let's say, environments that I did not know any. I had no background from that environment. Still, looking at the data, I was able to solve problems that others were not so able to solve. So the strength of tools, the toolkit is very high, very good. So I really
Excellent.
would
Really
recommend it
good
to everybody.
point. Yeah, really good point. Thank you very much indeed. Sunil and then Shakil.
Yeah, I would say we talked about a couple of best practices, and typically you need to understand what your business issues are before you pick up what would help you. As Johann said, it's a library. You need to figure out first what's wrong, then figure out what tool would really help you, rather than trying to do hit and trial, and that waste more efforts. And then obviously look at cost, which is where the waste comes in from lean. Look at agile, a combination of how can you do it faster, and then combine some of these key best practices to really deliver value to your clients. So I would say best practices are easy to implement. You think, but when you kind of pick and choose what you want, then you need to make sense of what really your business needs and what your clients need. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much indeed, Sunil. Shakil and then Johann.
As per follow what your organization need, maintain the process, build the process. What is the need of your organization, and then you can achieve the.
Okay, thanks very much indeed, Shakil. Thank you for joining us today on the panel. Johann and then Stephan.
Quick pitch. Here is one of the books that Dick wrote. They're really well written, and they're also the foundation or the material for the APMG certification scheme together with the Lean Six Sigma Academy. And the last thing I want to say is I would strongly recommend that you use Lean and Six Sigma together, and also understand that Lean goes beyond just problem solving. It's actually a management philosophy. And if you understand the philosophy, you will make a hell of a difference in your organization.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Johann. Wise words. Thank you. Stephan?
When we look at our service management world and how that's constantly changing, there's still one principle. Service management is about what you have to do, and as Johann rightly says, it's a library. All these frameworks where you can pick stuff. It's not just ITIL, there's FitSM and others, Lean IT. And Lean Six Sigma is really how you do things. It tells us how we can do things. It tells us to make processes not something that you can squeeze and scratch all the time, but really work on deliverables. And I think that's my takeaway.
Okay, thank you very much. And Suchitra, I know that you've been doing some real mental gymnastics as we've been kind of going through this today. We're seeing the questions coming in left, right, and centre on today's show. Your closing remarks, please.
Absolutely, Nick. It's been a great event. We've had questions coming from everybody from LinkedIn and YouTube, and questions which were asked earlier. So, and I've enjoyed listening to the panel share their experience and knowledge. So thank you once again.
Okay, all right, excellent. Well, very good. Everybody, now look, coming up a little bit later on today at 1 o'clock UK time, 2 o'clock in Europe, and 8 a.m. over on the Eastern Seaboard in the US, we return to the world of project management and change management. And we're being joined today by a bit of a world first, actually. We've got the world's first project manager who achieved their APM chartered status using Praxis Framework, together with the trainer who trained them. Now, that's an interesting combination. So look, tune in for that. It's going to be a very lively discussion. We also have our topic presentation coming from the APM, all about the benefits of professional membership. So really looking forward to that one. Next Monday, in the UK, the times do change a little if you're in the UK and Europe, as we revert back into winter time. So 8 a.m. UK time will be the start time for the stream of episode 20. And next Monday is all about careers. So we've got both shows focused on careers. On that particular show, we're going to be focused on how to improve your digital CV. How do you best go about authoring a digital CV? What's different about doing that? And what external sites should you be linking to and hosting it on? So that's a real key thing for us to do. On the same day, then a little later, we're going to be picking up how to improve our technical communication skills. Something which is often the key to becoming recognized for our expertise in our organizations and securing those internal or external promotions. So do subscribe to the show. You can do that in a number of ways. Just if you're watching on YouTube, then point your phone at the screen and the QR code will take you over to our registration page, where you can put in some information and let us know which particular topics and themes you're most interested in. Remember, this show is all about you, the audience. It's not so much where we're coming from. It's absolutely focused on the questions that you raise each week. So please do volunteer. Come join us on the panel. You'd be very welcome, and level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time.